I actually felt like I was missing out more in a house, because in the van I feel like I'm always out, because I am always out, and I love that.
So Pippa, that's how you pronounce your name.
It is, unless you're Spanish, they all call me Pippa. Pippa.
Hello, Pippa. That's the
Hola,
Spanish.
Pippa.
That's the Spanish version. But we're in the Yorkshire Dales, so I'll call you Pippa.
Yeah.
So you've been a nomad for 3 years so far. How's things going for you?
I absolutely adore it.
And why is that?
Well, before this, I had a little Nissan Micra that was an absolute tank, and I used to car camp in it all the time. So I was already made for this lifestyle. I was always in the countryside. I'm referred to as feral a lot. And then when the opportunity arose to transition to the van, I always knew that I didn't want to go down the house route. I've never liked spending times in houses. I term them concrete prisons. And so I was like, yep, absolutely, I'll be good with that. And then I went from going to the Lake District for a week, and then I went to Cornwall for a month, and then I was like, we'll go to Spain. So now I spend a lot of time in Europe. I'm a rock climber and a fell runner and a hike, so it lends to that very well, because where I park is always remote, and I'm basically, the fells are my garden. So I found it lent to that. I absolutely loved spending time in the Dolomites and Spain in winter, so that I don't have to deal with the UK's delightful antics for 6 months of the year. So it lends to that as well. And I work remotely, and it just enables me to be in better places all the time. I am basically feral, and I was a competitive fell runner before,
So you say you were made for this. What makes you made for this, do you think?
I've never dealt well with normative society, ever. Like, I tried for a few years. I've got 3 degrees. I've got 2 in biomedical sciences, like a master's as well, and then a science communication master's. I've done the sort of normal ways to hang out with people socially, but I was very, very unhappy. Like, I had a deep, unsettled unhappiness. I've had my run-ins with mental health for many years, all my life. And then anytime I was out in the countryside, or I'd spend time socialising at a climbing gym instead and things like that, I was much better off. I was more fulfilled. So I realised that I don't like any of the generic norms that society would have people socialise with, and anything out there is my comfortable. And I was like, okay, now we're finding out who we are. And that was when I was in my early 20s. Now I've just gone 30, and I'm one of the most feral people in existences. I won't go near any urban environment. I absolutely despise it. Unless it's a climbing gym. I'll only go to a city for a climbing gym.
Oh, that's a good exception.
It is a good exception.
So could you see yourself ever going back to a prison
No.
concrete box?
Absolutely not. It doesn't serve me to spend money on that. When I'm an only child, so when my parents die, I'll get their house and it'll be getting rented out or sold. Not interested. I'll keep the garage to store all my crap. But apart from that, it's just a storage unit. I have no interest. I never did, even when I just had a car. I used to stay out till 2 in the morning every night before I went in, and the house was just a bed. And then my friend let me live at his for a few years. And I never ended up spending any time there. I was always just out in the countryside or out at the climbing gyms, and then I'd park out in the middle of nowhere until late and just hang out in the car or in a friend's car with them and stuff. And then I'd go on night walks, and then I'd go in to go to bed, and then I'd be straight out. And it's like this beautifully done out 3-bedroom house, big corner sofa, and I'd just be in, out, and didn't spend any time there by choice. So I thought, well, I definitely don't gravitate towards this. I don't like the home comforts. I don't get anything from those. as you can see, this is no home comfort. So I sit in the corridor, crouched on my little stool, and that's fine. Or in the front, I work from the front.
So 3 years ago, you took the plunge to go in full time into this experience. Was there a catalyst, or was it just the right time?
Well, we thought that if my parents gave me the funds for the van, that it would help me find a funded PhD project, which is what was my intention at the time in the sciences. But then I thought that didn't end up happening, didn't the PhD? But I'd already got the van by that point, and I was like, well, I can do a different type of remote working. I have a lot of medical conditions. I need to be self-employed, really, if I'm going to make anything work. So I'm going to learn software engineering. So I am now a digital nomad. So if you need a website, I've got my my sign. That's my Insta, but my website is on my Insta. And they're stuck on the van, as and when. Very dirty van.
So, highly qualified digital nomad.
Yes.
Do you think that's still rare these days, to see really highly qualified people in this lifestyle? I mean, does it attract more people from when you've been out and about? Do you see people?
Yeah, anybody that I've sort of connected with, like they've not got my background. They've not got like 1 degree, most of them, let alone 3. They're intelligent people. I find that they're quite introspective, and they've got a lot of emotional intelligence. There's different types of intelligence, of course, but not so much academic. No, they're sort of the types that live like I do, especially. They're more like the crag rats.
Crag
So
rats.
I've got a good friend in the south who's absolutely a crag rat. He'll work, earn about 2 grand, and then live at the crag for another 3 months. Like that, they're the types that it's more common with. Certainly, I am quite an anomaly in sort of my hybrid way into this life. Definitely.
Cool. So I'm thinking about a tour of your van. How about that?
Yeah. So, oven and the hob, and then I've got a fridge freezer. That's my fridge freezer. The bed is that narrow. It stays that narrow. It doesn't fold out because I need to sleep on a 15 centimetre rise. So there's hinges there because I have a connective tissue disease that causes severe gastrointestinal issues, blood pressure issues, basically every system in my body, my autonomic nervous system. None of it works properly. So for the digestion, that's got a plank of wood in the middle and at the high end, so that it's on a minimum 15 centimetre rise to try and stop as much reflux through the night. So that was a bit of a weird adaptation. And then in the side, that always happens. 85 litre water tank. That's my skis. I took my passenger seat out so that I could fit my ski stuff in to go to Spain over the winter, because I skied in the Pyrenees. So
some real nomadic prioritization here,
exactly
people.
That, yeah. I'm not a taxi. So that's 85 litre. The gas for the oven, diesel heater, fuel tank. Behind my bouldering mat and my skis exists my electrics and my inverter, so I can power my laptop. And that's an instant water heater, the only one that was actually safe without a flue. It just needed 2 inches clearance, which is exactly what it received, because everything is by the millimetre in this van. And then my little porthole that opens, that's actually, there wasn't a window that was custom for this panel size, so I had to get a £20 eBay porthole for a boat and reverse engineer it so that it opened from the inside instead of the outside.
Oh wow.
So
I like that. It's a good mod, nice.
yeah, diesel heater comes out there, and then sink, and a lot of storage over the cab as well. That holds quite a lot up the front there.
That's
the max fan. so that sucks air in or kicks air out. That's quite big. It's electric if you hit the button under the blind.
You got your kitchen, your hob, you got an oven.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, a little oven.
Got a little nomadic envy here with the
Yeah.
oven. Plenty of storage. So what does like an evening look like? So you'll be chilling out, lounging, or?
No, like I often sit in the front because I work from the front as well. So I've got like a fold-out desk tray. I've got a second screen, the inverter's on, and that's where I'll do the software dev. And then often I'm at the climbing gym, or I'll see a friend, or I drive at night quite often because I travel a lot. So around the north of England, I'll go between Leeds, Sheffield, the Lake District and the Dales, and then I'll go to Cornwall frequently, and then I spend a lot of time in Europe now. So
look at that smile that came to her face then.
Pyrenees!
Yeah!
So oftentimes I'm driving at night till late, either from a plan that I've had. The climbing gyms don't shut here until like 10 p.m. In Europe it's 11. They know what they're doing. And so yeah, everybody sort of asks, what do you do? Like, do you not like, what do you do? And I'm thinking, well, what do you do in a house? Like, this is better because I can night walk. So if I'm parked up, which I'm always parked in the countryside, I can night walk as well, or like night climb if I want, either on my own or with people, or night run. Got bomber head torches. So like, what does anyone sort of do? Like, I've never watched TV. If a TV is on in my vicinity, it makes me feel ill. So I don't watch TV. And I stream like my serial killer documentaries or climbing documentaries on YouTube, or like some software engineering stuff, and all of that's sort of on YouTube anyway, which is my phone. I've got my laptop, but I don't use it for that sort of thing. The laptop's just used for work. So yeah, like I'm always either on the move or busy, or I'm learning more Spanish because I'm perfecting mi español.
Muy bien.
Muy bien.
Yeah. So the inevitable question comes up on this channel, which is, and it came up on a few of the Nomad stories so far, toilet. How do we do toilet?
I don't do toilet in here. There's no room for even the bucket versions, but you don't leave a trace. Like, if you go in the wild, there's ways and means to do it. You dig and you bury it. And then your wipes, I've got nappy bags. The only thing I ever want to buy nappy bags for, because I don't want kids. And these nappy bags, you take your crappy wipes away with you because they don't biodegrade very easily, and you just don't want to be leaving piles of them even if you bury them. So take your wipes, they're fine in the nappy bags, you just tie that up, pick them up inside out like a dog poop, and then put them in your bin bag, and then eventually a bin. So that's the way to do that. Like, I don't mind that at all because I was a fell runner before, a competitive fell runner, so like I'm used to going for nervy poos before a race. So I was already versed in my
nervy poos,
my wild business. well before this life. It was all leading up to this.
See, this is great to hear because your van lifers sometimes get a bad reputation for leaving places a mess, but what you're kind of describing here is responsible nomadism.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, actually, who I find leaving more mess when I do observe it, oftentimes van lifers get blamed for it, although it can be van lifers, certainly. They often get blamed for it, and it's not them. You see hikers leaving far more mess on the fells as well as where they've parked to go hike. And then, of course, because the vans have been parked there, it's easier to pin it on them, but oftentimes it isn't.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a spot on observation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got everything you need to really...
Everything. I've got solar.
Solar on the roof as well.
Battery to battery to charge the leisure battery.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can run the inverter for my laptop, or the leisure battery will also run my fridge freezer, which is a compressor fridge freezer, and my water pump. So the solar contributes to that, especially in Europe, not as much in sunny England.
Yeah, I think you mentioned you're a software developer as well. How do you find the work rhythms? How do you manage that?
Actually a lot better in the van, because I sit in the driver's seat, and the way that I've got the setup, the driver's seat's actually better because I've got, one of the conditions I have is a connective tissue disorder. So none of my joints are held in place properly, including my spine, which gives me a lot of significant pain. I basically walk around with a degree of whiplash all the time. I get migraines severely if I sit still too long. I get migraines severely if I do the wrong types of exercise or training, or speed sessions and races used to give me more of them. There's a lot of myofascial adhesions in my body. Now the driver's seat's actually better than any academic library chair, desk chair that I ever used to sit in. So that works quite well.
Oh, ergonomically, yeah, they're pretty comfy, aren't they?
Yeah, way better. And then in regard to timings, because I have to dance around how much movement have I done, do I have a migraine, how much maintenance do I need to do on my body today, it allows me more freedom. I often work from like 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. sometimes, and other times. Our guy again.
This guy just wants to be on camera, folks. He's a great tractor driver.
And then other times I'll work, you know, through the day, and because it depends on the weather as well. Like if it's sunny and I'm in the fells, then I can be out and do my walk breaks, because I have to move every hour or two as well. I can't just sit for too long at a time. So I can do my walk breaks somewhere beautiful, wherever I've chosen to park. And I've got an eSIM. So oftentimes if there's not signal on one of my sims, the other has signal, especially in Europe. Avoid all the roaming rubbish that we now have thanks to Brexit.
In van life USA, for example, there's a lot more females involved in that as a whole. So there's a lot more female van lifers. So there's lots of female content out there. In the UK, I still don't think there's
not to my knowledge either.
There's not that many female van lifers in comparison to the male counterparts. I still think it's a male-dominated thing over here. But America, I think it's the absolute opposite direction. It's more a female-dominated thing. And females of a certain age, maybe later in life, that kind of thing. Is there anything you consider different being a female in the Nomad experience? Is there anything you have to be wary of or take more thought about?
A lot of people ask that, right? And I think for the normal female, probably, but I've not had safety wise, because one, I'm parked in the countryside, so they're generally nicer, more like less dodgy places anyway. But even when I'm parked somewhere a bit dodgy, like some of my Leeds park ups are a bit like, not for me, but I am built like, I can't swear, but you know that phrase where it's a brick.
Yeah.
One of them. I'm built like one of them. Like if you see on in my climbing stuff or anything on my Insta or whatever, like it's too cold to take my coat off, I'll show you my forearm.
Whoa.
Like, there's lots. All of me is ripped up, like in such a way. Like I've got the golf ball muscle there. Like I'm very, very strong. And I also have a very aggressive temperament, generally speaking. I don't know why, it just is. So oftentimes I'm there ranting and going around my van, you know, swearing at something that's fallen off or the oat milk that's leaked. And people are probably more fearful of me than I am of them, to be honest.
That's an interesting perspective. In America, the female nomads over there tend to have burr spray or guns. That's a common thing to carry in vans.
Well, there's plenty of knives, as you can see. Yeah. This one gets trapped here because it's the one I used to open turkey packets, and I got sick of washing it. And I trapped it there by accident once, and I found that it stays there without issue. So now it lives there because I don't have to keep washing it.
Special guest feature of the knife there. Excellent. So this is I mean, you've managed to configure a lifestyle that suits your health needs, that serves your desire for freedom and a way to live life on your terms.
Yes.
Any challenges? Anything that could be more comfortable for you? What's the less glamorous side of van life?
I think sometimes, for example, if you've run out of water, because those things that are commodities in a house, they're not commodities now. So if you run out of gas halfway through your food cooking, or the oat milks are flown about because you were driving and you've got a pool of oat milk when you come around the back and you've got to mop it all up.
That seems like a fresh memory. Did that happen today? By any chance?
Might have done. And yesterday. And then, like, it's this one here. It got flown about, and then look at it. So, like, those sorts of things, or you've got to find, like, if I've got a migraine, but I've got to find water at 1 a.m. to even take any of my medications I have to take, and you're going around, especially in the UK, water taps are not as easy to come by, whereas Europe, obviously, you've got your actual little camper stations where they've got the stands with fresh water, grey water, waste, and so that can be tricky and frustrating. Like, some days a lot of things just go wrong, but like they do in houses as well. And when I've lived in houses prior to this 3 years, I found that I had less resilience to deal with what was going wrong.
Interesting.
I was more unhappy with just where I was. I felt more trapped. I actually felt like I was missing out more in a house, because in the van I feel like I'm always out, because I am always out, and I love that.
And then finally, I mean, what's your biggest highlight of this lifestyle? Because it is still unique. It's still a minority lifestyle.
I would say just being able to scrat around in the wild all the time, like, and to be able to be like, last summer, I saw a Google thing of the Dolomites, and I was like, that looks epic. I want to scramble up those scree slopes. I want to boulder on those peaks, like. And I booked it a week later because I didn't need to worry about accommodation. I just went and I drove to the tunnel. Or like in Spain, for 2 months I spent in Spain. I came back to the UK. I lasted a week and I was like, can't do it. Went back to the tunnel because I could. And like, I wouldn't otherwise have the money to do that either, because I can't, physically I can't afford to work a lot. I can't afford to work a normative week. So I wouldn't even be able to afford a normal lifestyle, come to think of it. But when I've lived in houses prior, I've been much less fulfilled. So
yeah, I mean, that's interesting. It's spending all your time paying down debts and bills and all this kind of stuff, versus this freedom lifestyle that you have.
Yeah,
I know which one I'd take.
Yeah.
And then a question that's coming up on the channel is about, you know, future relationships. Is it possible to have a relationship being so feral?
I actually think it's ruled out. I don't want one now. I'm at a point in my life where I've actually spent most of my adult life in relationships. As a serial monogamist, I would have described myself, from ages 19 to 27. And it was one relationship to the next, and because I felt like I needed a relationship, I wasn't quite complete. And then off the back of a very toxic one, where I had to get the police involved with him, actually that taught my brain that I could spend time on my own, because whilst I was avoiding the guy, it had to spend evenings alone, days alone, and I was like, actually this is quite fun, we've had a nice time. I've been to the climbing wall with my friends, then I've spent 6 hours on my own, and it's actually been very peaceful. And then I actually ended up switching completely. So I was like, this is my peace. Like, I feel content and fulfilled completely without another person. My fulfillment, contentment and happiness is no longer dependent on another person, nor can another person that I'm heavily emotionally invested in have any power to detract from that. That being said, I think it's possible, because the characters that I've met, like, I bond with them easier. This lifestyle filters out all the characters I wouldn't normally bond with anyway. So who I do meet, where you could connect in that way, it's actually been quite a good filter for the ones that are more successful to bond with anyway. And I did date a van lifer, and you know, it didn't not work because of the van life, we'll say that, and it was a year and we're still on good terms. So yeah, like, I think it depends on your character, definitely. I think the character that I am, being so feral, I think this lifestyle plays to my advantage. If I was to get to a point ever where I wanted one again, or
would you consider a house dweller, for example?
I don't know.
It's difficult, isn't it?
It would be, because I would never want to, I would have to be in a position where I didn't want to go off to change my environment as often as I do. Because I'd be away from them so often, like 1 month here, 3 weeks here, a week there, 2 months there, throughout the year. And I'm always, you know, I do have a base in the north of England because my friends, and I have very close friendships, so they draw me back to the north. So if they had their house dwelling in the north of England, I would probably see them enough, but it would require me to alter how much I go off and how much freedom I have, because they would be tied to that area. Should I want to see them, you know, a sufficient amount, and that's not my prerogative now. I don't want to have to think about another entity at all. I've got enough on my plate and things are very full without that. And I think if you want kids, it's different, because that's easier when you've got that sort of setup and another person on hand. But I absolutely don't. I couldn't think of anything worse. So I'm
gonna start using that. An entity approached me for a date the other day. I'm not quite sure about that.
This entity. Yeah.
No, but that's great, because I think it's important to look at these things for if you're embarked on van life and nomad life. You know, water, gas, toilet, relationships, all these have to be factored into terms of the life you design for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an absolute privilege to hear about your life and have a little tour of your house on wheels.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Great.